and Jamarl Thomas, and we're going to discuss 3 topics for our independent media panel. And the first one is, go ahead, Holly.
I'm going to talk for a minute about, I got a hit piece written about me by the local paper, the Portland Press Herald, this Wednesday. It came out and it was talking about how I serve on the local school board. I've been serving on the local board since 2012, and I've only been making videos since October, but the Portland Press Herald wrote a piece saying that I was a conspiracy theorist because I reported on the Seth Rich case, and I've questioned 9/11, and he just went off about how I'm crazy and whether or not I should be serving in office because of my reporting on the Seth Rich case.
My questions I have towards it is, you're local, and that kind of makes sense, but why didn't he attack someone like AJ Goodman, who has something like 60,000 subscribers? Why did he attack you? You only have 4,000 subscribers.
Yeah, so I think it's just like, the guy Greg who wrote the piece about me he friended me on Facebook like a few months ago, and I know he's kind of been like lurking on my Facebook and social media. And the Portland Press Herald's the biggest paper in Maine, so they've got a lot of power, and they've written hit pieces about Greens and local people in office before. They do it pretty often, and like not even a decade ago, they wrote a piece like saying there was a man who was on the school board, and his motto that he put out for the gay pride parade was, "I'm gay, green, and gorgeous." And they wrote, I thought that was awesome. But they wrote such a nasty article about him and like suggested that he was sexualizing his office and like this and that. So it goes back like a while that they'll just like focus on, Portland's a pretty liberal city, and they'll just find a way to just report something terrible about people. So when he called me on Tuesday and he left a message and said, "Hey, I want to ask you a few questions about the Seth Rich case," I was like, "Oh man, they're gonna write a hit piece on me. I know it."
So what do you do on the school board, and are you affiliated with a party?
Yeah, so I've been serving on the Portland school board since 2012, and I ran as a Green, so we do have a couple of Greens on the school board. Nice. And we had a Green state rep at one point, so we have like a tiny little Green holdout outpost here in Portland. The only other party in Portland are the Democrats. There are no Republicans around, so we are effectively the other party. So I try not to talk about like specifically what I vote on and stuff, or like the budget and stuff, because I am kind of like going over this line a little bit. So I love my school board job. Like it's basically a full-time job, but it's volunteer wages and everything like that. So I have meetings usually like Thursdays and Tuesdays. It can be random, and we meet at City Hall, and we have $100 million budget. So it is a lot of work. But I started up the YouTube stuff like around the elections this year, because I'm like, there isn't enough independent thought and independent media out there, and I want to use my First Amendment right to do so. And even Greg's article in Portland Press Herald said, "Oh, well, she's got her First Amendment right. She can do what she wants, but should we have like this crazy conspiracy theorist on our school board?"
Jamarl, what are your thoughts on it? I've seen a couple of videos, but
here's the thing. Human beings have this bad tendency to need people to follow a narrative. Like they need truth, even if it's not real. But like it's like they need a certain amount of definitiveness in their particular reality. And if you don't toe a particular line, they take issue. In our particular case, we have media. Media toes a very specific line. So in their case, they don't want to have the conversation about whether 9/11 is anything wrong with. Now, if you make the point of saying, "Well, wait a minute, how do you know?" Like I understand you may err towards the side of something, but how do you know? To call somebody a conspiracy theorist would mean that you know as a matter of fact that this particular thing is true. How do you know that Russia hacked us? How do you know? Like, it's the thing. I guess my point is the things that they're saying she was conspiracy theorist about. It's like it's. I don't think there's anything wrong with inquiry. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, "Hey, I'm questioning that. I don't necessarily take that just because you told me that that's particularly true." His issue is she doesn't take this as true, so we're going to attack her because she didn't take this particular point of view as true. That's insane. That's insane. I don't care what it is. People make mistakes. People can be wrong. So, yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I question this thing with 9/11, particularly since this idea of, all the consequences that came from it. Yes, I question this thing with Seth Rich on whether or not I believe he was a leaker. Yes, that Julian Assange says that's true. Yes, I'm going to err towards the side of Julian Assange because Julian Assange hasn't lied. That guy's an asshole. And that guy is requiring people to toe a particular line. And just because he's in a paper and he has a mouthpiece, he's putting it out. What I would say to Holly is, you shouldn't change one iota. You shouldn't change one iota. I understand there's a certain political pressure with this guy putting an article out. And from the standpoint of the individual, you may look at this and say, how many people are reading this article? What are those perceptions of me of those people? Just keep in mind, to some degree, this is your own perception looking out at other people's perception of you. It's like, what are other people perceiving of me based on this article? I would make the point that there's no way to know. Ultimately, you do your thing. Jeremy Corbyn had been attacked relentlessly in media. Theresa May lost 12 seats in that election. I'm making the point that just because you're being attacked by media doesn't necessarily mean that attack is going to bear fruit. That's all I'm saying. Like, yes, it looks bad. Yes, here's a thing. Whether or not people believe it, though, is a separate and distinct matter. And it may not matter in one iota. And your name is out there in a big, very large newspaper at that. Even if it's a negative, your name is still out there in a very large newspaper. People can look you up and make their own choices on what they want to do. I'm an overly stressor. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's a pain in the ass. Yes, it hurts your feelings at a certain point. But you must understand, you've chosen to be in a field where it's blood sport. And this blood sport, you've chosen to put your virtues and your weaknesses and all these things of yourself out with this idea that I want to change the world. And to the degree that I can change the world, I want to change the world. You're going to have people that are going to go after you for it. It just comes with the territory. It's one of those things you have to accept. But you can't let that necessarily stop you from doing what you're doing. I'll say it that way. There's nothing to do with people attacking you. People will attack you regardless.
So how is it going to change anything that you're doing?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. One iota.
I don't think so. I mean, my seat isn't up until 2019. Mm-hmm. So if they want to run someone against me, like, that's cool. There was a couple people who told me that I needed to step down from my seat. There's two people. Yeah, two people. And then compared to like 100 emails and messages of people saying, you know what, like, this is silly, or, you know, that was obviously a hit piece, or even if I don't agree with you, that's your right, you know? So,
you know what, you should...
in every situation, you will have people to disagree with you. It's no way around it. It doesn't matter what it is. You could say the world is round, and you would have some people sending you a dirty email saying you're an asshole because the world is flat and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It doesn't matter what it is. It's in this field, you're gonna hit criticism. Like I've seen people get pissy on the most mundane things. Like somebody will put an article up or a video up, and people are just losing their shit over what this person said, and this person didn't say anything that was bad or anything else. Like, and I'm saying this from the standpoint of what they said was innocuous, and they were still attacked for it. Yeah. What you're saying is not necessarily innocuous, but what you're saying is fair to question. There's nothing wrong with the question. The problem is him taking a position on it. It's like, I need reality to be this way, so I'm angry that Holly is taking this position against my reality. That's his problem. That's his issue. He has a mouthpiece in regards to the newspaper, but that's his issue. You be you. There's things that matter. When it comes up for a vote of healthcare, Holly is going to be there saying, yes, I want healthcare. Put it this way, and the things that represent her constituents, she's going to represent her constituency. Her ideas, these things that she believes or she questions. So what? What is she going to do when rubber meets the road and you need to vote for policy, you need to put in a position, and is that going to represent your constituents? I would make the case that the answer is yes. She's going to represent her interests, the interests of her public. That guy can go fuck himself. All those people who are saying that you should step down, you should write, go fuck yourself. And do what you're going to do. If they take you out the seat, they take you out the seat. But they take you out the seat with you being you.
What I would do is actually compile all those emails and comments, especially on his article, and just do a video on it because there's so much support on your side. And,
that's right.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I had to take a day off. I was a little bit reeling, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to think, you know, but I wasn't sure if people would you know. I didn't know how it was gonna go. So yeah.
You know, think of it. It's funny when people in this election you had Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, and people are like, "Oh my God, how did we get here? How did this happen?" And you had a Green Party candidate. You know, the Green Party candidate was in line with the progressives. That's the amazing part. For the most part, she was Sanders, and people would say, "I'd vote for her," but other people wouldn't. Now that means that in their head they have this conception of the other. Now, there are millions of others who are saying the same thing. I'd vote for her, but the other person wouldn't. Now, what I'm getting at is, as a Green Party candidate, for the most part, it's not an easy road to go, mainly because of this perspective of the other. I'm saying that you're also taking this perspective of the other. What are other people saying about me based upon this article? I think that's a fair point to ask, and I can understand how that's a difficult thing. I guess all I want to say is accept it. Just accept it. Martin Luther King, and I'm not comparing you to Martin Luther King. I'm just saying Martin Luther King. Even he was attacked. He was coming out saying, "Hey, maybe we should be murdering these people in Vietnam. How dare you say something about murdering people in Vietnam? How dare you say something about military?" He's out there talking about peace and love, and they're attacking him for it. Yeah. I make the case that it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be attacked.
Yeah, there's that saying, "You're damned if you do, damned if you don't." You know.
Right. That's right. That's right. I've watched your videos, and I like your videos. I've seen them. I'm like, fair enough. She's a Green Party candidate. I can understand where she's coming from and the things that she's saying. Even if I disagree, I don't necessarily think you're crazy for having that position. But I don't think most people are crazy for taking positions. I think, like I said, we're in a world of ambiguity. So anybody who's certain is usually lying. That guy who's trying to saying all this stuff is debunked is lying. There's no way for him to know. Just logically, he's lying. It's impossible for the human being and that individual to know what's taking place outside of himself. How did he know? I'm always amazed by these people who are certain.
Yeah.
It's like, where's your certainty coming from?
Which, when you mentioned Hillary Clinton, I'm going to launch into the next topic. I did some digging, right?
Uh-oh.
And so the Portland Press Herald got bought out by someone named S. Donald Sussman. And S. Donald Sussman is like an American financier. He's a I think he headed a hedge fund. And so all the articles are posted in the description box of this video, and you could read through it. So once the Portland Press Herald got bought out by MaineToday Media, well, S. Donald Sussman gave $20 million to a pro-Clinton super PAC. So
wow.
It's connected to a political hit piece because you're a Green Party.
That's amazing.
So
that's amazing.
What are your thoughts on that?
Which one? Who?
Connecting it to S. Donald Sussman and him buying out the Portland Press Herald.
Go for it, Holly.
Yeah, let me say, because I've heard about Donald Sussman for years here in Portland. Like, I'm a little bit nervous now that you brought up his name. Like, he's been summoned, but
don't be. Never be.
Yeah, I know. Like, he's been buying up a lot of property in Portland for a long time, and he used to be married to our representative Shelley Pingree. So it's all really tied in. And when he bought up the
Shelley? Who is she?
Her name is Shelley Pingree. They're not together anymore, but she was a very well-known state rep here in Portland. She is a state rep in Maine, and
What party affiliation?
She is
Probably a Democrat.
Yep, she's Democrat, and she's our rep in Washington. So we have Shelley Pingree, and we have Susan Collins, who was part of the Comey hearings today. But yes, she was married to Donald Sussman. Donald Sussman's bought up a lot of property here, and when he bought up the Portland Press Herald a couple of years ago, people said it was like a philanthropic measure to try to save print newspapers.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, but I didn't know about him giving that much to the Clintons. Like when you dropped that like 20 million, I was like, like here we go. Like there's your answer right there. There's a local rag. That's our last paper, and it's owned by Maine Media Today or whatever, Sussman. So
those things are dying.
That's a great connection. Thanks. Yeah. Exactly.
Those things are dying. Yeah. I mean, look, people are distrustful of media in general. I mean, it's gotten to the point there's distrustful of media. When you look at the polls and stuff like that, they're distrustful of media. They're starting to look for sources elsewhere. You have 49% of the people who chose not to vote. They did so for a reason. Just regardless of what the media was saying, the media made Trump to be this, monster of monsters, this thing that's going to destroy democracy. They still put him in that office. The media is dying. And look, this thing of there's the political media apparatus. Those things work in tandem with one another. I mean, it's not like it's this plutocrat out the kindness of his heart is giving all of this money to this particular media thing. Whatever. They want influence. They want the ability to be able to write these stories to attack particular people who go against their particular narrative. This is an amazing conflict of interest. Why is a media organization being owned by somebody who's given $20 million to a super PAC by Hillary Clinton? That's amazing. He has a vested interest to function in behest of the Democratic Party at that point, meaning anybody who's not a Democrat is probably going to be in the line of fire. And I would wager that he's not revealing that information in that paper. I would wager that information is not being told. That's amazing. It doesn't shock me, but it's amazing.
Does anyone else have anything to say about the Holly Seeliger situation?
I just want to say thanks. Like all the little independent medias and like big media like H.A. Goodman and Caitlin Johnstone and Tim Black, Jamarl, Hard Bastard, all those people were Zach Holler. People were like, this is BS. And just like, it did shake me a little bit, but at the same time, like Jamarl said, this is what you ask for, and
what you ask for.
Yep. And I'm here to wake up America. Like this is, I brought up 9/11 earlier. I was 15 when 9/11 happened. I was like, oh, something big happened. Like something very wrong happened to our country. Like I knew even as a kid, I was like, something is very wrong. And I just wonder where the peace movement went. Like, we used to be like, suddenly we were in Afghanistan and Iraq and people were protesting it at first, but now it's like people just accept that we're just invading all these countries. And now we're like fighting with Iran and Qatar, like in Syria. Like what the hell is going on here? And, why isn't the left making these questions and like posing any sort of fight against any of this? It's just like us at this point, like not to necessarily lump myself in with HA and like the few.
Oh, you're part of the club now. You're part of the club.
Yeah, you're part of the club.
I mean, like, what do we have left? It's just like this ragtag bunch of people at this point. It's so crazy. We're like stuck in the Roman Empire, like watching it all come down. And I just, I have to have some faith that, we can use the internet as a tool or something. What else do we have?
I'd argue, in any game space, and this is a game space. That's the way I see it, game space. There's certain rules and everything else associated with the space. It doesn't look like we have much, but I'd argue we have more than I think you think we do. Like how can I say this? Yes, it looks bad. Yes, when Obama took office, for the most part, everybody went to sleep. The left went to sleep. There is no left. I would make the argument that the left was destroyed when Bill Clinton took office. There was no left afterwards. Yes, there was a peace movement and everything else. When Obama took office, they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. Imagine that. The president that was murdering thousands of civilians, that said if the person is 16 years or older, that person is fair game to be murdered. That's amazing. That's amazing. He had no congressional authorization to go into one country after the next, and he did so. And nobody pushed back on what he did because he was Obama, and the left went to sleep. The right doesn't care if you murder civilians. So the only vehicle that you have to deal with it is the left. There is no left. The left is us, with the misanthropes, the misfits of sorts. But there's a lot of us. I mean, believe it or not, there is a lot of us. So when I was at the Left Forum, everybody had this question of, what do we do? Well, the fact that that question exists of what do we do means people are primed to do something. All these people protesting Trump, the pussy hat wearers, all these people, they're doing something. Their energies are frittered in all these other directions. It's not a cohesive bunch. If that energy could be focused in a very specific point, you would have your movement. You'd have your peace movement. The problem is getting those people aligned. Because I give you an example. You had all these people protesting at the airport saying, how dare you stop Muslims from coming into this country? I mean, he's trying to do this Muslim ban. Those people didn't say anything when Obama was murdering those exact same Muslims.
Yep.
It didn't matter. They went to sleep. Being in that office, to some degree, stirs up a hornet's nest in regards to the people in this particular country. But those people need to be pointed. That's not easy.
And this is what you guys do. This is what independent media does. You guys actually talk about this stuff.
Yeah, the other media doesn't.
Yeah,
they don't. The Democratic Party. I was on a plane with the Democrat. I was talking to the guy, and I was like, yeah, it's a left forum. He says, well, I'm a lefty too, and he says, I'm a Democrat, and I was thinking to myself, you're not a lefty. I'm sorry, don't think it's bad. And I asked him, I pushed them because I was like, he said, I voted for Hillary Clinton. I said, okay. I said, what are the problems that you think address us in this country, in this world? And he goes on the list. And I said, do you honestly believe that Hillary Clinton would have addressed any of those problems? I said, Obama gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. Do you think that any way addresses income inequality? Do you think Hillary Clinton would have done better? No. Then why did you vote for her? Well, it's the lesser of the two evils. But don't you see that any change that takes place has to come from the left? Meaning if you're going to put somebody in office on the left who's not going to make those changes, what's the point? That party needs to lose over and over and over again until it gets to the point of, okay, they're not going to vote for us unless we do something, unless we actually represent our base or represent our constituents. Up to that point, no changes happen in the country. None at all. Meaning, yes, we're the left, and yes, we're the people who are bitching and everything else. But we're also people who essentially constrain the Democratic Party, meaning without us, they lose.
Yeah.
It's the tail wagging the dog. You just have to have enough people in alignment of saying, we're okay with them losing. And that's the hurdle.
Yeah.
Getting people to the point of saying, we're okay with them losing until they become straight. Because those people they're terrified. Oh my God, Trump is going to end the world. And it's like, that's my mom. My mom voted for Hillary Clinton. She loves her kid to death. She listens to my videos. She about this stuff. And she still said, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. That man is a monster. So it's like, how do you get over that hurdle? If I can't even convince my mama, how am I going to convince some random street that, look, your problem is the Democrats. Your problem is not Republicans. Republicans are going to do what Republicans do. Any changes that take place needs to come from the vehicle on the left, which is supposed to be Democratic Party. They have a philosophical basis that's supposed to represent the interests of the 99%. They're not doing that. If they're not doing that, then you shouldn't give them your vote. It's like, am I going to give them that vote to do something that they're not? It's like, am I going to pay for a pizza that never came? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, your vote is not perfunctory. Your vote is there because you want something. It's a transaction. I'm giving you my vote because I want you to do something, not because I'm terrified of the other guy. If I'm giving you my vote because I'm just scared of that guy, I have no tether to the person in the office. That person can do whatever they want. I always ask this question. I'll leave it at this. In 2020, if Hillary Clinton got elected, if Hillary Clinton privatized Social Security, if she invaded Syria, put troops in Syria, nearly getting us into a war with Russia, do you turn around and still vote for Hillary Clinton? If they put up Ted Cruz, and I guarantee you the majority of those people will say yes, which is a problem.
Yeah.
It means you have no political influence. She can do whatever she wants in that office. Making them lose is your best bet to getting them to change beyond that. Because think of it this way. Bernie Sanders, up to this point, was almost irrelevant. Bernie Sanders is jumping around the country, and Democrats have hugged him as much as they can. They've been rubbing themselves in him. Not because you honestly believe that if Hillary Clinton won, Sanders would be jumping around the country in this way?
No.
I don't think so either.
No way.
No, I don't think so either.
Right.
Do what you're doing. You're going to get attacked regardless.
Yeah. All right.
Territory.
Let's go to your topic, Jamarl. You wanted to talk about James Comey's testimony and the conversation with Loretta Lynch?
Yes. I saw this, and I was listening to this, and I turned to the guy who I was working with. I don't even know his political affiliation. I didn't care. I was like, dude, I'm listening to the Comey investigation. They just said that Hillary Clinton influenced. All right, let me start at the beginning. So Comey is in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now, this is supposed to be a conversation about Russia, Trump, and all this other stuff. And Flynn's influence, political influence, meaning he's been influenced by other. He was essentially a lobbyist, but never told anybody he was a lobbyist for a foreign government. Now, as he's telling his testimony, he says something that's mind-blowing that the media, for the most part, almost completely ignored. He says that while he was doing the criminal investigation for Hillary Clinton on the emails, when he was coming out to essentially tell the public what was taking place, Loretta Lynch said, call it a matter. Don't call it a criminal investigation. He says, well, what do you mean? It's a criminal investigation. It's not a quote-unquote matter. She says, call it a criminal investigation. Now, Loretta Lynch is his boss, and he did what his boss told him to do. He came out to the press and says it's a matter. And then he says, it bothered me because she essentially changed the language of what took place in order to accommodate one of the campaigns that was running. Now, that's interesting. The Democratic Party and Republican Party are two corporations. They're not wings of the government, meaning they have no right to the government themselves. So why on earth is a federal FBI? Why on earth are they changing their story to benefit one of the candidates? Because ultimately, if you're changing the story, you said it's a matter. Well, it's a federal investigation. It's a criminal investigation. Comey himself said it was a criminal investigation. He said he was bothered by the fact that he changed the language to accommodate one of the campaigns. Now, let's connect the dots on this. Bill Clinton meets Loretta Lynch on the tarmac. He comes out and says, we're just talking about our families, and it was just a random meeting, and it just happened by accident. Now, we also know that on this testimony, if he's being pushed, if she's pushing him, there's a link, there's a connection between Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Loretta Lynch, meaning Democrats. Obama was in office, Loretta Lynch is a Democrat, etc. She's under a Democratic administration. And she's pushing the FBI director, the person who's head of the FBI, to take a narrative that benefits the Democrat. That is massively problematic. That's massively problematic. She should not have, if you're going to be honest, Comey should have came out and says it's a federal criminal investigation based on XYZ, not changing the language. Now, from Comey's standpoint, Comey looks as he's just, I'm here to do a job. You can say he's lying, but ultimately Comey, throughout this testimony, sounds like, I don't care about this politics. I'm here to do a job. My job is to be head of the federal, the FBI. These guys in politics, these politicians, these guys are trying to get me to do things, but ultimately I'm trying to do a job. It is massively problematic that Loretta Lynch is going to try to get Comey to change his testimony, because you start asking the questions of, well, wait a minute, did she also try to get him to change the investigation? Did she take any influence in the investigation itself? If she's going to get him to change the language, meaning how she's relating to the public itself and how Comey is going to relate that information to the public, is it crazy to say that maybe she didn't get indicted because there was some kind of push on Comey to not indict her?
Yeah.
I think it's a fair question to ask. She should have been indicted. And Republicans weren't wrong on this. They were like, well, wait a minute, she lied. Yeah, she lied. Then why didn't you prosecute? Why didn't you press charges? Well, we didn't believe we could convict. But you just said she lied. Yes, I know that. Then why didn't you prosecute? Like, it's this weird thing of, if you're saying X, then Y should follow. But Y didn't follow. So why didn't it follow? Now, Comey's thing is, well, we couldn't prosecute. is it possible that Loretta Lynch had something to do with it? And is it possible that a tarmac meeting was built? I think it's maddening or ridiculous that they believe that this tarmac thing was Bill Clinton asking about her grandkids when his wife was under federal, possible prosecution by the FBI. That's a mind-blowing thing. And people just kind of overlooked it like nothing and went straight to this Trump and Russia thing. Amazing.
So, Holly, what's your perspective on all that?
I just I haven't trust Comey since he said that he looked over all of Hillary Clinton's emails like before the election. He was like, "Oh yeah, we looked over all of them in like what was it, a couple days." He was like, "Nothing to see here." I was like, this guy is totally lying right now. And I think that it's like what,
but
and then
in the knees. I mean, I'm
just
saying, like, and he hit her squarely in the knees in that election. Like, as that election was coming to the end, Comey comes up just before the, hey, we're reopening the investigation. And it was like, whoa, we're reopening the investigation. Comey found something. Maybe Comey found something. She's going to be indicted. She's going to be indicted. Like, that was the talk. Like, put it this way. If Comey was in the tank for her, oh, man, that's a horrible way. That looked like he hit her squarely in the knees, and it was almost worse that he didn't push because it looked like they were working behind the scenes. Like for Comey to come out and say yes, she was lying, but no, we're not going to investigate it, made it look like they were fudging it, like they were doing something behind the scenes to keep her from being indicted. It was almost worse to some degree.
So,
I think the mainstream too, like, the DNC, everyone's been preparing to like, oh, see, we got Trump, and like that just didn't happen, like it didn't happen today. So they don't even know how to spin it now. They're just like confusing people. So I was like looking on social media for people to be like, oh, we got Trump, and this proves it, but I think it fell flat today. Like they didn't have what they were looking for. The smoking gun about Russia or whatever. I think they're just trying to confuse people at this point because, it's like, and honestly, like, if they find info or whatever and they're going to impeach Trump, like, just like the same thing that happened with Bill Clinton, like, what could really happen? Or, they put Mike Pence in office. Is that what liberals want? Like,
that's the worst case. I've been arguing that's the worst case scenario. I think Pence is worse.
Because I agree.
Trump is a goddamn goblin.
I didn't watch the James Comey testimony, but they did get into the what was on Anthony Weiner's laptop.
I don't remember that part. I don't remember if they did on that part. The parts I remember, they were focusing more so on it's always political in that sense. Yeah, Democrats asking questions trying to make the connection between Trump and Russia. Yeah. And yet Republicans trying to defend Trump in that way because they realize that's his party, so they try to defend that party. It's amazing. I mean, there's one part where Comey comes out and says the New York Times was publishing fake news. Like, the New York Times story was bogus. And because it's a federal investigation, they can't come out and say, yeah, this story is bogus. So the story runs. People get this idea of something that's just blatantly not true. And beyond that, he was even going into this thing of how he said, yes, there's evidence that Russia hacked the election or tried to hack the election, something to that effect. But that's always been I mean, they always said that. Like, so that's not really news. It's one of those things where they're public. Put it this way: the media comes out as that's new. That was always their position. The NSA and all those guys looked at the thing from CrowdStrike and said, "Hey, this looks like Russia hacked us." Now, but they never showed that evidence. It's almost like you have to take their word for it that Russia hacked us. I don't take their word for it.
What's funny, in my perspective, I'm always wondering, did they ever do the same type of research to see if Hillary Clinton's private server was attemptedly hacked by Russia?
That would be interesting. That would be, and the wild part though, in Germany and I think it was France, both of them came out, both intelligence services in both of those countries came out and said Russia had nothing to do with our elections. Exactly. Even though they kept saying Russia was trying to hack Germany elections. Russia was trying to influence Germany. Like, it was bogus. You know who was? The CIA was involved with France's election. The CIA
and I will say DHS was found too with, in Georgia and other states like that didn't hit the mainstream news. Several states were saying that DHS was going after them.
It's not that it didn't hit the mainstream news. It's that the mainstream news wouldn't carry that narrative.
Yeah.
That's the difference. You got to understand. There's a political. What the news reports is constrained by other factors. So you would never hear the news come on and say we murdered a million Iraqis in Iraq. You would never hear them say it. They will say we had X number of troops that got injured, but they would never talk about the people we murdered or injured abroad, even though we continuously do it. They never say we killed this many people by drones every year. It never comes up. Never comes up. You would think that's a mind-blowing thing for you to kill that many people over and over and over again, and it never comes up. Media constrains. Sometimes there's this fallacy that just because they're talking about something, that those are the things that they need to talk about. It's not. Sometimes it's the things that they don't say are the things that are most important.
And it comes full circle, right? I mean, when we talk about stuff, it's not in the mainstream media narrative. It's in our own thought processes, our own commentaries, our own research, our own investigation.
Reality.
And Greg Kesich, when he smeared you, Holly, you make how much money from your videos?
Couple $100 a month.
Yeah. And we connected the dots to him with S. Donald Sussman, and they say it's an undisclosed amount of how much he bought it for. The MaineToday. So, and he gave $21 million to Clinton Super PAC.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But the media would say, there's no relation to those things. Just because they're receiving that money doesn't necessarily mean they're doing anything for that money. That's insane. Who believes that? Nobody believes that. The American public doesn't believe that. That's amazing that they say that. You can give Hillary Clinton $1 billion. Hillary Clinton is not going to do anything for the $1 billion that the plutocrats out the kindness of their heart gave her. Okay. Sure she's not.
Yeah.
Sure she's not. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. The political and media apparatus run hand in hand, and ultimately that thing runs on cash. You have 6 media companies that control everything you see and hear in that sense in regards to media. Those things are owned by certain corporations and certain people. Those corporations are not going to put out a narrative that's going to adversely affect their what they have, that affects their particular industries.
Yep.
So it's amazing. And they told this line is every so often I would do a thing with like when I'm looking at an interview. I typically don't watch mainstream media because it aggravates the shit out of me to watch. And I would analyze something CNN is doing, and I'm like, certainly they know that that's not true. Like, certainly they know that there's more to it. Like, I give an example. There was this thing where Chuck Todd was having a conversation with Sanders, and they were talking about, I think it was the Russia thing. And Sanders was like, yeah, Russia and Syria and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but Sanders has to know that the United States was paying terrorists to undermine the Syrian government. Never comes up. Never comes up. Tulsi Gabbard comes back and says, look, we need to stop funding terrorists in Syria. Jake Tapper almost loses his mind. The federal government says it's not true. Well, I just came back from Syria, and they're saying no, that they were funding terrorists, and they want to stop us from doing that. We should stop that. We should stop that. Blew his mind. Blew his mind. That's not the narrative they want to carry. That adversely affects weapons profits in this particular country. That's not a narrative we want to talk about. It's amazing. All right. It's amazing. Those things are controlled essentially by cash. Runs through the whole process.
So, I think we're gonna close down this panel. There's gonna be more. Hopefully, I'm not in it. I don't like doing this very often. It's kind of scary. But Holly,
what's scary about it?
Jamarl, you guys are probably gonna have panels with bigger independent media people. Especially, I know Hard Bastard is interested in this, and Zach Holler, and a couple
Hard
others.
Bastard asked me for an interview. That should be interesting.
Yeah.
That should be interesting. I don't think I've had a talk with a conservative before, like a real talk. I gotta be honest, I don't think he's a conservative. I honestly don't think he's a conservative. I think Hard Bastard is a lefty. I think he's pissed at some of the things that goes on in the
Yeah, he's a lefty. Yeah, and Jamarl Thomas.
He hates everyone.
He doesn't hate you or Jamarl, that's for sure. Or Zach Holler. Yeah.
Well, that shocked me, by the way. Like, that shocked me. Because I'm further to the left than most. Like, I can go. I don't care about parties. I don't care about parties. I care about what works, and what works tends to put me further to the left. Like, so I would say something like, yes, that's the idea of private property is somewhat bogus, because ultimately any private property that someone had was taking that blood and a sword. You know what I mean? It's like, where did you get that from? Who gave you that? Ultimately, somebody had to give you something in order for you to own it. Well, nobody can give you the resources of the planet. Where are you getting those resources from? That's somewhat of just a logical deduction from it. Now, people would say, that guy's a communist. I'm not a communist. I'm not anything. I look at this stuff and think, I have a bias towards humanity. You know, it's like, how can we make this world in a way? We have enough resources to deal with everybody on the planet. How do you deal with that? What's the society that gets you to a place where you get those resources to people who need it? Because ultimately, you're going to have to deal with crime and poverty and mental degradation, war, all these things, all these vagaries, all these societal illnesses that people just consider to be normal human nature. These things aren't human nature. These things are done purely by a model that we operate in.
Holly,
that should be an interesting conversation for Harbasa.
Yeah, Holly. So Jamarl Thomas is at the People's Summit. He just got into his hotel. Who would you want him to interview, and what question would you ask that person?
Oh, good question.
Good question. So hard, man.
Good question.
I don't know. I was like so excited. I was reading the list of all the people that are going to be there. Do you know about? Have you met Jim Hightower or heard of him before?
No, I can find him.
Look him up. Look him up. He's old school. Like, he's been making like little pamphlet papers, like mailers, for like decades now. So ask about him, and like, I don't know. It's so fascinating. I'll have to go there sometime. I don't know. Maybe ask people what the future of the media is. You know, like, should we completely rely upon the internet? Like, or should we expand to other stuff too? I don't know. You know, especially with censorship. You know, I don't know. Maybe some of those thoughts about, you know, what's the future of internet and alternative media.
You could ask about the fight against net neutrality.
Net neutrality, yeah. We need. I would say that the left needs to. Let me say it this way: there needs to be an overarching narrative in regards to what the left wants to accomplish. There has to be, otherwise you're just aimless. Republicans have always had a very specific thing they want to accomplish, so they understood we need to attack unions, we need to attack voter base of, you know, African Americans and everything else. These things that keep people off the rolls and everything else. Nixon attacked hippies using pot and African Americans, locking those people up in order to decapitate the voter base. We don't have anything like that. I mean, we allow them to attack our unions. We allow them to attack our voter bases. And the internet, being the next thing of independent liberal media, is the next thing to be attacked.
Yep.
So those things need
and
to
Holly knows all about that.
Yeah. Here's a question, Holly. And this was at the Left Forum. I spent an hour and a half listening to a Green Party guy talk about whether or not they should own dues, or whether the Green Party people should pay dues. Should the Green Party pay dues?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so, because like we've had that discussion locally too, whether or not, because we can't get the Green Party off the ground. Like, we keep trying. Like, I mean, we have a statewide party that we put together, but as far as getting the Portland Greens, like, we keep falling apart. So, you know, I wonder if dues would make that happen or not. But at the same time,
we have a disagreement. This is great. All right.
I mean, yeah, because I'm like, I don't know. Like, if someone's broke as hell, like, I don't want to tell them, like, they can't be a green. I don't know how that works, you know?
All right. Be strong on that position for the moment. Take a no. Because that sounds like that's a no, but be strong on the no. And defend the position. You're not taking corporate money. The Greens have said we're not going to take corporate cash, and I agree. You should.
Yeah.
And in saying we're not going to take corporate cash, you're stuck with the dilemma. How do you get yourself to be a legitimate party? Meaning you're in a capitalistic system. Regardless of not taking cash, regardless of your values, how are you going to get the party off the ground? Meaning you're going to need cash to do it. Where are you going to get the money from if you're not going to get it from dues?
So right now we still have something called clean elections, but it's being sliced like all the time, like from all sides. Like, and for me, it's not for local campaigns. Like, I can't do school board. It's only for like rep and Senate, like state house. Right. So, and you have to collect a certain amount of money, $5 checks, and then it'll be backed up by the state. Well, they're trying to kill that, and like it keeps getting slashed, and the money gets spent for something else. So I can understand, like we struggle for the smallest amount of money.
Right.
If you don't have the money, then you can't run.
That's right.
So,
That's my point. That's why I keep making this point of, it's like I sat there and I thought to myself, why are we having this conversation? I just kept thinking, like, I'm not going to get this hour and a half of my life back. Yes, you get dues. Yes, you get dues. You don't have a choice. If you want to have a real party and you want to have the capacity to be a legitimate party, meaning you have a station in each state, you have somewhere where you can go, where you can have meetings and you can have press conferences.
Exactly.
Have your money somewhere.
Yep.
Like I just thought to myself,
we used to have an office and like a photocopier and a phone center, and that's how you run. That's how you run parties and candidates. You can't do that without it. You really can't. I totally agree. We can't get off the ground right now because we don't have an office or like, we just don't have the space or the capacity to do that right now.
Look up if you get the chance. There's a group. This is one thing I did learn about when I was in the left forum. Richmond Progressive Association. They're in California. California has had a huge amount of Greens take seats. Now, yes, it's California. But the RPA started based upon this oil thing. They were trying to fight this oil thing, and they eventually coalesced into kind of a party of sorts, a great party. I would say, look at their model. Their model was pretty decent. They were able to fight a lot of stuff and get a lot of people on city councils and stuff like that, using that model of dues and everything else in order to create a foundation, and from that foundation to expand from it. But just my point of view, it's one of those things like, if they're not going to take money, where are you going to get the money from? And those are just, it's like, why are we having this conversation with dudes? Also, I understand this thing of lefties saying, well, I don't want people to be excluded because he can't afford it. I get it. I mean, and that was part of the meeting too, where they were like, well, what if somebody couldn't afford to pay that particular money? Your issue is not payment, believe it or not. People can afford to give you $1. People can afford to give you $10. They can always move the money around to give it to you. If they catch it, they need to believe that that money is going to be used for good ends. Like if you're going to throw money down a sewer, then no, they're not going to do it. You need to get across to them that A, you're a legitimate party. B, that the money is going to be used towards getting me into a particular office where I can affect you in a positive way. The problem is not so much that this person doesn't have $1 to give. It's this person has $1. This person has tight on $1. But they need to know that the $1 is going to go towards good ends.
Yep.
That's what I think the Greens come in at. It's like you got to get across to people that, yes, we're a legitimate party. I mean, I know you are because you guys are taking offices. You guys are in the school board. But in Richmond, Virginia, I'm talking about here in Virginia. No, there are no Greens. There's one guy who's running for the Greens, and I'm going to do an interview with him. And if I'm not mistaken, he's in my district. Like, he's the guy who's running for my district. But it's few and far between. It's not something that's substantial, built up.
Well, anyways, I want to thank you guys for this panel and hope to see you guys in more panels in the future. And
nice to meet you, Ali.
Thank you so much.
Conversations
Yeah, nice to meet you.
All right. Have fun at the People's Summit, Jamarl. And
I will. I'm gonna track down Tim Black.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Stick a camera in his face. Hey, I have questions for you. No,
and we've got your back, Holly. So
thanks, guys.
stay in the fight.
Thank you.
All right.
Have fun tomorrow.
Thank you. Be safe, guys.
All right. Bye. Thank you, everyone in the audience.
Hey, what's the link going to be? Can you send me the link?
Yes, I'll send you the link.
Very cool.
All right.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, dude. Be safe.
All right.